So welcome, greetings for everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Carla Fernández. She is a remarkable person, formidable woman, who I first met in the Netherlands when she got the very prestigious Prins Claus Prize, now 9 years ago in 14. That's a prize which is not given easily. It's a prize given to people who contribute to culture in their very own way, really changing, I would say, the landscape of culture. And she was still a pretty young designer, getting a little bit famous, but this was really the start, I think, of a tremendous career. And ever since, we are like ships that pass in the night and that once in a while encounter each other. She did an installation with her husband in our exhibition pop-up in the Netherlands. We met in Santa Fe, and you dressed me in your poncho. We met again in Arnhem Biennale of Fashion, and so on. So it's interesting how people of the same sort of cut from the same wood seem to be always encountering each other here and there in this world. Unfortunately, today, Philip Fimano cannot be with us. He is in the plane. He's possibly watching us from the plane. If that is the case, hello, Philip. But there was no other way. So he's regretting very much, but he will catch up later on. We do have Ragnar, who is always taking care of us with her very strong sense of organization and calming us and making things happen. So that's perfect. We came from Venice, the opening of the Biennale of Architecture. And this was about scenarios for the future. Unfortunately, many of the scenarios are just still lamentations of what is wrong today, which is necessary, but I was missing some future vision and some future materialization and some future ideas. The best pavilions really got those ideas from indigenous structures and people and behavior patterns, and that was very enlightening. But I think that today we will get actually a more deeper and better view. And in general, in our World Hope Forum, we tend to have a lot of scenarios which can help all of us for the future. I want to ask all of you to please talk about World Hope Forum around you. Please spread the news, because there's many people, but there's not enough people, I think. So we need to become a bigger community, a bigger family. And so I beg you, over summer, whenever you meet people, always ask them, do you know World Hope Forum, as a sort of discipline, so that when we start again in September, we start, maybe with even a more important crowd. Carla, I'm anticipating this with so much joy and fervor even. So I want to give you the word so that you can introduce the people you curated for your forum. And I want to thank you really very much that you're giving us this time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. You know that I admire you, and I enjoy very much your brain and your energy. And you are always una maestra, a teacher, a professor for us, not only here in Mexico, but all around the world. And that's why also I invited the people that I love and I admired, and that also have been working, I've been walking through with them and learning from them. There is nothing more that I love to learn, and then whenever I can, I can share also what we do and share that knowledge. That's why I see all these, my family faces in the screen. I wish we could all be here together. I don't know, someone is calling me. That shouldn't be happening. Let me just close up the WhatsApp that it was closed already. Yes. So shall we start with the presentation? Lee?
Yeah, that's perfect, Carla. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Because
yes,
I wanted to introduce each of the panelists, but
you also have to tell about yourself.
yes. Well, I think the presentation is about the brand and it's a personal story. So I think that will cover. Let me see. I am very bad at Zoom. I hope this will work. Okay. Do you see it? Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, everyone, I just want to say buenos dias here in Mexico, and thank you, Lee and Philippe, and all the team of World Hope Forum for letting us share with you all of what we do and why we do it. I have my husband here. This is like an open studio. This is part of my family, so you will always see people behind me and all the machines, sounds of the machines going on. This is a live house. First, I want to introduce who we are. I always speak as in us because we are a big family here in Mexico. We're a Mexican fashion house that started creative fashion, as Lee said, long time ago, 30 years ago. But I've been obsessed with it from a very early age. I was a teenager in the 80s when Mexico was always looking to the north, expecting to become more and more industrialized and corporate. We all dress the same. We all use the same jeans. We all use like the same polos. And it was just completely boring. And we were told in Mexico to eat hamburgers instead of tacos. This was the norm in the cities in a country with an immense cultural diversity, where today 60 different languages, indigenous languages, are spoken. I grew up always listening that we did not have fashion in Mexico. On the other side, I was very lucky to have a father that was the director of the museums of anthropology. So we used to go to the south mainly because there's where the ruins, where the pyramids and the ruins are. And I was a very young girl, a very young kid. And I realized that it could be ruins, but there was also the living and obviously the indigenous communities living there. This is a country where the indigenous communities, as I said before, and as you can see in this map, are very vast. And it's not only 68 languages, but the languages that derive from it. So I knew that we were blind and that we were not seeing all these amazing clothing that these little girls and their parents were using. Without a doubt, these garments were haute couture. They were Mexican high fashion made in the mountains, the deserts, and the jungles. I understood in a very young age that we were blind, as I said to you. So that's why when I was 12 years old, I understand that to be original, we had to go back to the origin. Let me just go to the other slide. I also understood the power of clothing because for me, we don't see each other and we have the ability to talk to each other, but we read ourselves through the clothing. So I always consider fashion and clothing and attire to be the first language that we communicate through. So that's why I always say that the word text comes from, or the other way around, from textiles. And it's an open book that we can read each other. This is also something that I learned from the communities. I decided to start making clothing, and I had two paths to Mexican clothing, you know, to do this fashion that I was told always that we didn't have. And if you come to Mexico, or if you are aware of how the women and men in the indigenous communities in my country dress, of course, you will see that there is fashion, and the most beautiful fashion in this country. So I had two paths: to work together with the artisans, the best artists in my country, or only get inspired. The second one was never a chance. So we started doing these collaborations many, many years ago. Here, for example, we see ourselves of cultural agents. That comes from my friend here, Doris, that you will listen to her late. And just to sit down, listen, and learn. We know that we have to learn from the indigenous communities and for the people that have this equilibrium that sustain not only Mexican artisans, but all the artisans around the world. So for example, these are two beautiful techniques that we have worked together in making new designs. Just to make a quick pass, 80% of the artisans that we work with, they ask us to do new designs with them and not the other way around. So here, for example, you have Don Juan, who I love and I admire, and he makes these chocolate whisks to rub the chocolate that used to come in thick pastillas, in thick, like a thick chocolate that you have to rub, and then with milk or with water, and then it will become the chocolate, the drink chocolate that we all know. These are made to last forever. So I inherited one of the chocolate whisks of my mom or my grandma, and we don't need another one because these objects are meant to last forever, as I said. And now there's a problem because the chocolate comes in powder. For sure, you know, Choco Milk and Choco Quick and all those things. So things have evolved and changed. So we just sat down with Don Juan that called us and said, we have a problem. We put the stick in front of us and we said, how this is made. It has these rings, and we just took out the rings and made them into these bracelets. And now the tradition continues exactly the same, but instead of making this beautiful utensilio, this beautiful object, we do shoes, we do handbags, the handles, we do bracelets. And not only that, in this community, they would go to the mountain and cut the trees and not use sustainable wood. And now we have changed that together with Don Juan, and more people in the community are getting this trend. On the other side, we have the Tecuan mask, which is a mask traditionally that is worn in Mexico. And we, together with the artisans, decided to open up into a market, and we are designing these handbags that people carry around, and it's not to put on the mask, but you also get 100% handmade, beautiful object filled with the strength and the cultural. It has, because let me explain it better. So when you wear the mask of the Tecuan, you get the strength of the animal. The eyes reflect the mirror, the eyes reflect the bad eye. So everything, all the elements, sacred elements that the mask has are into the bag. And we started doing it also something that we call cross-pollination. That there's one community in Guerrero that makes the mask, and there is these are the artisans from Ocumicho, Michoacan, that are painting it. So there's one community making one object and then painted by another community. These are some examples of our fashion that we could go one by one, but let me go better to the map of who we are collaborating, not only in the production way, but most important for us is in the design and the creative processes. We work mainly with women. Mexico is The artisans are mainly women dedicated to textiles, with 15 different states, nearly 16 now. We're starting a new state. And you will see all these different techniques around Mexico. Then let me explain you our way of patterning. Mexican indigenous clothing is the result of joining together squares and rectangular panels. Why? Because this is how the fabric, the textile, comes out of the loom. And it gives these geometrical silhouettes so characteristic. With the Spanish conquest, indigenous tailors and seamstresses, they knew how to do the silhouettes, the Western silhouettes, no, at very fit to the body. Still, they kept the Mexican patterning and stay the same, coming from squares and rectangular panels, and adjusting only to the body to follow these Western trends only by pleats, folds, and darts. With modernity, artisans started selling their garments to tourists in the markets, and the tourists will ask them to change their geometrical shape for the tailor one. That must sound familiar today. You know that the Westerns, us, we know we go to another country and we see like a geometrical shape, and we will ask the artisan, oh, why don't you do like a more wasted silhouette? I'm not used to wear a huipil or a poncho. You should, like move your tradition or move your originality to something more Western. So of course the artisans, they listen and they want, to be competitive, and they will start doing these inventos, these monsters, that's what I say. And it's a terrible idea, at least in Mexico, because if you use a backstrap loom that it has been woven by hand, it's an object that is made with 8 sticks, that are picked up in the mountains, and it's brocaded, and you open it with a scissor and try to make a buttonhole, it starts to open. Also, the Western patterning, it's very, very difficult. We didn't have scissors in this continental, so everything was planned to make these Mexican origami. In order to innovate, let me just, so you can read some of the difference between Mexican indigenous dress and tailor attire. Well, I explain you our pedagogy. In order to innovate and make new designs rooted in the original, we needed to recognize the beauty and sophistication of the Mexican patterning and use it as an amazing tool of design. We developed a visual pedagogy that could have been taught even in those communities that we didn't speak or spoke the same languages, that it's a lot of them. That is how we could show, for example, a women in Michoacan, a Purépecha women, how this system was exactly the same system she was using to create her fashion as one of the Mayan in the peninsula of Yucatan. And of course, they could get it instantly, because this is the way that they have been making clothing for the last 3,000 years. We have Taller Flora, that is a mobile lab that we'll talk about it later. And for example, this is the Prince Claus Seed Award Ghana workshop. And it's quite interesting to see how around the world, First Nations and indigenous communities, we have this common language. So we give these workshops of how to make Mexican attire. This is a workshop of 3 hours, and it's fantastic how we can create new clothing and new designs and make it ours and still feel that we are able and capable to do our own clothing. Fashion is not ephemeral. And I made this presentation showing you the titles of our manifesto of fashion as resistance. We decided to write this manifesto for ourselves and for our collaborators, and because we wanted to demonstrate that many fashion systems coexist, and we want to show you how we do it. So I'm going to read just a couple of points of our manifesto. Not all of it, because it could be too long, but let me read you this one. Fashion is not ephemeral, dead to planned obsolescence, which renders expandable all it draws into its abyss of waste. The best design is not that which disintegrates, but that which remains. We want our clothes to last so that their whisper will be heard by other generations. Fashion is not ephemeral, neither is our planet nor our relationships. I always say as well also that the best for the best. And for me, the best artists, as I said, in Mexico are the artisans. And these are photographers, a photography of Graciela Iturbide, who I love and I admire. Also photographies of Graciela Iturbide, so the best for the best. And these are also other photos of Ricardo Ramos. We do a lot of, instead of making catwalks, which I think they're very stiff, what we do are, we take our time and we present it in dance. So people that attend our catwalks or our performances will see the clothing in movement with dancers, and we'll be there for 45 minutes or an hour. Tradition is not static. Let's see. I will also try, we like to read this part of the manifesto. And it says, for more than 3,000 years, those who weave and embroider have transmitted their fundamental knowledge from mother to daughter. If their techniques have survived, it is precisely because they are a form of expression. In them, the subjective and the collective are simultaneously manifested. Still, tradition is not suspended in time. In small towns and artisan communities, styles change and evolve. Creativity is alive, not canceled, and it gives way to new unexpected designs. Here you can see this is a backstrap loom that in Mexico still in use. And then you could see what we said, that only with 8 sticks that are picked up from the mountain, and they are turned in these beautiful artifacts, you know, that you can weave the most sophisticated textiles and then make your own clothing. This is another example of beautiful collection that we did that is called Sábado de Gloria, Holy Saturday. And it was made in the middle of the pandemic. And this is Leonardo Linares. His grandfather invented the alebrijes, and he helped us to paint and to conceptualize this collection. We also, well, we work with many artisans, and with all these techniques. This is backstrap. The one before was backstrap loom. This is foot loom, the colonial. We also say in our manifesto that everybody is beautiful and emanates vitality. So something else that we've learned from the communities is the idea and that everybody is beautiful and emanates vitality. With the shape that we were talking about before, this geometrical shape of Mexican attire is not sized and is flexible and adaptable and modular. It's like if you see these sculptures in movement, and as I said before, they are between sculptures and open books that you could read. So the principle of one size or sizeless and genderless may be something new, but it has been used in First Nations and indigenous communities always. So these are friends as well that we love, that have joined us in this journey of showing our clothing and wearing it. In true luxury, there is no oppression. We understand that artisan processes require time to think, time to learn, time to transform, and to transcend. Upon this notion of what it means to make, we build long-term relationships with a commitment to fair compensation as a symmetrical reflection of effort. We also know that we could not be ourselves to judge if we are a sustainable or ethical house. I have an amazing team and an amazing partner, business partner, Cristina Rangel, and she focused on how we can make always a better, we don't forget that we're a business, we live being a business, but how we can do it, always making it better. So we ask other corporations like B Corp or Ashoka to show us the path. So saying this, obviously we are a B Corp. I understand that we were the first one, the first fashion house in all Latin America to become a B Corp fashion house. Aquí está Don Fidel. He's an amazing artisan that lives not far away from here in Mexico City. He makes all these leather calado fretwork. Then we also work with embroidery in many different ways, in many different states, natural dyes, and ikat, Mexican ikat, jaspe, made in the state of Mexico. The origin of the textile is the earth. We are convinced that artisans around the world and the handmade processes are the only way to keep a balance between humans and nature. We need to learn from the traditional knowledge and its evolution of thousands of years. We need to do few and do it slowly. And it's up to us to put an end to fashion as trash. These are some images of our performances, our exhibitions, partners, artisans. The user as a collector. As I said before, and coming from Doris, who I already said 3 times that I love, and I will keep saying it, we see ourselves more as a cultural agents and not only as fashion designers. I did not have a chance to study fashion in Mexico because there was not a degree. So I had to find my way and study something else. And the Mexican government will not give you scholarships saying that it was a very superfluous career, which since then I've been fighting, as everyone here, to let them know that Mexico is a country of textiles and that fashion is one of the most important cultural expressions that we have as a human race. So that is why every time I have an opportunity, and we as a fashion house, we do exhibitions, not only in Mexico City, but outside of Mexico City in places that have like very remote access to museums, exhibitions, etc. So kids and everyone can see how we do our fashion or how designers do a collection. We also do a free magazine that we give with each collection, so you know more about it and you know who we collaborate with and how. We do videos that of the techniques. It's very important that you understand visually the complexity of these techniques, because then you will understand and your head will like only explode, you know, and you will admire deeply all these handmade processes. With all this communication around, we hope that those who wear our designs will be more than clients, that they will be participants and sentinels of a legacy in risk of extinction. The processes are a legacy. We have a physical house where artisans come and give workshops. And they talk and share about their knowledge and expertise. This is the mobile laboratory of Taller Flora. This is a catwalk that we made at the V&A. And it was, we were chanting the manifesto. We were saying no to fashion as trash, you know, and all these chants that accompany our way of making clothing. And it was very interesting to see the power of the clothing, handmade clothing. Again, photographies for Graciela Iturbide with the catwalks and with the participations of many of us. Here we have Pierana Cavalchini, a dear friend from Boston. She's a curator of the Gardner Museum. And we only say we are one and we are many. I see clothing not only as a cultural expression, but also as a political tool. So when Trump won the elections, I was with my kid and he was crying because he knew that Trump was saying that we Mexicans were the worst people on earth and women, you know, he didn't respect women. So it was the time of Facebook. So I posted on Facebook and said, let's go and accompany the women in the United States, you know, and let's express ourselves. So I've been to many marches in Mexico, to many protests, and I thought that we would have to run or do something. This was very quiet. And so that's why I made all these garments that you could just wrap around and run away. And they were showing all these statements against Trump. From that, we moved to the women's right. This is a concert with Pussy Riot. And in Mexico, not all the states legalize abortion. We're getting there more and more. So we use it for express as well in our resistance against many things. No, also with Pedro, we are helping him to work against the nuclearization of the atomic bomb, and we have been doing several joint performances with him. So that's why we say we are one and we are many. Our team here in Mexico, our collaborators in the communities, this is us. There's some missing. And that's why we say that the future is handmade. Now I think we should go to, I don't know if Alejandro da Costa architect Alejandro da Costa is somewhere around. Thank you very much.
This is important knowledge we are learning. The full manifesto you can find on the website. It's very important. We printed this in the book Proud South, and each time I present, I will really stop with each chapter, because it's right on what I think we as a community all feel, and which we all want to work for, and where we want to go. So it's helping, I think, a lot of people to direct where they want to be. Thank you.
Gracias.
Is your next speaker ready?